Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to take a simple sound source and use that to make some really cool custom synth textures. Let's do it. As I said in a recent video about percussion, one of the things that I think is a really great benefit to making your own custom sounds is that they're your own. It gives you an opportunity to do something unique. It makes you stand out from the crowd. Plus, in my opinion, it's actually just kind of fun. Now, I use lots of off-the-shelf libraries, just like everybody else. Luckily, these days, they give you a lot of customization right there in the plugin, a lot of layers and onboard effects. But for me, the cherry on top is adding at least something that is custom just to make it completely my own. Let me show you an example. Now, if you can believe it, I did that entire texture out of a tiny snippet of an Irish flute phrase and 3 plugins. Let me show you how I did it. In the meantime, though, if you like these videos, please take the time to hit the buttons below so you know when I've posted new stuff. Let's have a look. Okay, so what did I do to make that specific set of sounds that you heard earlier? A lot of times I try to obscure the source, and by that I mean I want to change the original sound enough that you can't identify where it came from. I don't want you to be able to go, that was an Irish flute, or that was a guitar or a piano or a voice or whatever. So one of the main things I do is change the timbre. Usually I do that by changing the pitch or time stretching it, and of course putting it through a whole ton of plugins. In this case, my starting point was from Cinewinds. Now I've selected Irish flute phrases. Now let me point something out here. If you'll notice, I've turned off the reverb and I've turned off the full mix, and I'm using just the spot mic. And the reason for that is I want to have the cleanest possible source material, meaning no extra room sound, no reverb, no nothing. And I should say that, look, the reason I chose that one is it didn't have too many notes. Some of the phrases, for instance, have a whole stack of. A lot of them have a lot of notes. I wanted something that only had a couple of notes so that it would sound still sort of sonorous. In this case, it had 4 notes, right? So I lopped off the first note, leaving me with a root, a major second, and a minor third. So let me just quickly crossfade those. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do a lot of pitch shifting and time shifting and time stretching. So we'll start with processes pitch shift right here. Now, a lot of times when I pitch shift, I turn off time correction. So it's a good way to change the timbre and I get a longer performance. I'll show you here the very first track. We're going to solo that, and I'm going to turn off all the inserts. Now, all I did was loop this section of audio and then added in a reverb. Now, putting in a reverb is usually the first thing I do. The reason being, I want to get, in this case, because I'm creating a texture, I want to get some distance between me and the source. Don't worry about this preset because I changed everything. You can, of course, grab a preset and start from there. Sometimes it's more fun to click and just start fooling around. So in this case, I changed it to a hall from a room. Halls are going to be more, they're going to be more reverberant sounding anyway, and the reflection style is going to be different than what a room sounds like. And I put in a ton of reverb, in this case, 25 seconds. I make sure that the signal is fully wet. I used this function in TaiChi. Now, let me talk about this. The reason I used TaiChi, if I didn't mention it before, was it has a lot of stuff built in to the reverb that is designed for synths and guitars. There's EQs, there's chorus, there's a dynamic section. There's a lot of detail stuff that there's more than you can get out of a sort of a standard reverb, and it's because it's made for this sort of sound designy stuff. It's a lot of fun. Now, to increase the sense of distance and space, I'm adjusting the balance between the early and late reflections. I'm pushing it all the way so it's all late reflections and no early. And I use this knob here. It's the spread knob, which sort of makes the reverb sound, or it changes the way the reverb blossoms in the space. And I'm cranked that all the way up for a large space as opposed to this, so you can see it says tight. I also like to make sure chorus is turned on. I like a nice rich reverb for this kind of stuff. It's also not a bad idea to use a little bit of multi-band EQ just to control the output of the reverb. In this case, I'm just doing it right inside the plug. And that's kind of my starting point. It's a 25-second reverb, so that'll take some time. Now, one thing I often like to do when I'm creating textures is reverb stacking, meaning feeding the output of one reverb into the next reverb. Now you can see I still used the same starting point, the default, but increased the reverb time and just adjust the settings myself. The same EQ shape here, but still 100% wet, still all late reflections. So once I have two of those going, now by stacking the reverbs, feeding one into the next one, you get this very nice spacious sound. And not content with that amount of space, I often throw in some sort of delay. In this case, I'm using Echo Boy. I'm not using any of the features of Echo Boy in this case, but I just want something that'll make it kind of move around a little bit. You won't hear much difference here, but it's still there. All right. Now, EQ, pretty radical EQ here. The reason I throw in an EQ no matter what is that oftentimes stacking reverbs can lead to buildup of overtones in certain cases. So you need that anyway to control the output of the sound. So sometimes I need to put an EQ somewhere in the middle between the reverbs to control the sound there and then pass that sound down to the next plugin. I played around with this a whole bunch. Now let me just show you something real quick here. There's a lot you can do there. Now, after I did that, what I did was take this track and duplicate it. And then I rendered all of that audio that's in that one track there. And I'll show you why. The reason being, I want to flip this around. Now, the reason I do that is so the two sounds can play simultaneously with each other. So now, instead of hearing the notes go up, dee-da-da, the other one's playing and going down. So the two of them together create kind of a nonstop chord in a way. Now, let me play you the Song of My People. No, let me play you the reverse track by itself. Notice how it's kind of a cool effect that the note smears downward now that it's in reverse. So anyway, after that, then I did this. I kind of forgot what I did here, but let's play this next section without the inserts. I was playing around and obviously didn't clean up the edit at all. but when you're doing stuff like this, sometimes that can be a happy accident. So why don't we play that little snippet with the inserts in. Now I'm still using the exact same effects chain, but since I changed the pitch, I moved where the EQ is filtering out up here. Now by this point, I'm not changing really much on the plugins. I'm really doing now the bulk of the work inside the audio. I've got TaiChi doing what I want it to do, and you could still make more changes to it, but I was trying to do this in a real quick fashion. I did all this in about 20 minutes. It's taking me longer to explain it, I think. So to create the drone, I just grabbed one section of the phrase, the one sustained note, and pitched that way down. That is from this flute phrase up here. Okay. All right. Now we're going to pitch this down. I think it's 3 octaves, if I remember correctly. Oops. And no time correction. There was another octave after that, which I can just do here. And once I've isolated the pitch I want to use, I can duplicate it a bunch of times. Cubase 13 is expanding and contracting windows right now. And then I just grab all those regions and crossfade them. Now, once I have a long enough region, I can drop it down to the track with the effects on it. Just fade this in, fade this out. You can hear some harmonics up here, so you can actually just filter those out, so you have just the fundamental. Or if you want the overtones, you've got them. Point is it creates a nice bass sound. So when you put all these together, I'm automating this sound. This one here, that's a panner. Okay, so I think you get the gist there. A lot of time stretching, pitch shifting, and then just adding plugins and playing around. Sometimes you just throw a plugin on, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's no big deal. Anyway, the point is experiment, experiment, experiment. The idea is to be inspired by the tiniest little bit of source material, in this case a flute phrase and 3 plugins. Imagine what you could do with a lot of source material. If you're enjoying these videos, please take the time to like and subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when I'm going to post something new. If you have any questions or recommendations or suggestions, leave them in the comments and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.